Hello everyone and welcome to this 8th coding challenge video. In this one I'm going to be making an evolutionary or natural selection color scheme generator script. The goal of this script is going to be to generate an initial maybe like 4 color schemes in our screen, which have 4 different very different looking color schemes, and then we'll be able to click on one of them and then generate subsequent generations that continue to use similar vibes or colors to that original color scheme. And is kind of a general programming thing that people can do where they have traits of sort of an entity, in this case a color scheme, and then you can reproduce it in subsequent generations and produce varying offspring. So it kind of relates to science, evolution, and natural selection, and we're going to be attempting to recreate it with a color scheme. Before we get started with this video, I do want to remind you down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly in the channel, and down in the description you can check out the code for this in the GitHub link. Once I finish it up, I'll be putting it there. You can also follow us there on GitHub for coding updates, and in the description of the video, make sure you follow us on Instagram for other live updates. If you're not a member of the Discord server, you can come and join and help with scripting, extensions, plugins, expressions, and much more. And if you want to help support the YouTube channel and get cool perks like emojis, live streams, code in advance, and member Discord status, you can become a channel member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP. Link for that is in the description. Alright, so let's just go ahead and get started. I think this is going to be a really simple user interface, and most of the stuff is going to be the actual process that the script runs. I'm thinking we need some text to display what is the current generation or iteration we're on, and then maybe like an initialize button and like a reproduce button. So I'm going to start with a window, get a new window, palette type, we'll call this Evolutionary color schemes, undefined size. I'm going to set the orientation of this equal to a column, and then we're going to have some display text, but nothing else really in that group, so we don't need to create a group for it. I'm going to say display text is equal to our window.add some static text, undefined size, and we'll just say generations 0. And then we'll create a group for our buttons, which will actually run stuff. And this will be equal to our window. We're going to add a group, undefined size, and we're going to call this group. And then we'll set the orientation of our group equal to orientation equal to a row. Now we'll have 2 buttons. Let's call the first one, I guess, Genesis. Genesis button is equal to our group. We're going to add a button, undefined size, and call it Genesis. Then I'll create a second button, which we'll call reproduce. Now the Genesis button is going to create the 4 color schemes from scratch. And then anytime we're inside of a color scheme composition that we define as a certain composition that setup that we'll use, maybe with a certain name or file extension or something. I'm trying to think how we're going to do this. Then reproduce will require you that you have something like that open to create subsequent color schemes, compositions, I guess. So let's go ahead and center our window and show it. Make sure we're connected to After Effects. And now we have our basic UI. I think this will work good. So we'll hit Genesis. It will generate the initial color schemes, set generations to 1, and then we can reproduce as many times as we want by selecting a color scheme and making offspring of that. These are going to be, I believe, these aren't going to require 2 parents to reproduce offspring. I forget what the word is. Someone that knows biology can correct me in the comments, but like worms, certain types of fish, they can reproduce sort of on their own, or they can change sex to create offspring. So we're going to kind of go along those lines of only needing 1 parent to create the offspring. And let's go ahead and start with our Genesis button. Say Genesis button.onClick is equal to a function. Then we're just going to call this generate Genesis comp. And we're also going to enclose this in an app.begin undo group with the text called generate Genesis comp. And after it, we're going to say app.end undo group. And that will mean that we can easily undo the creation of our Genesis composition in one click after it's complete. Now let's go ahead and define that function, generate Genesis comp. We don't need any arguments because we're creating this composition from scratch. Let's go ahead and see how we're going to do this. Let's create like a 2000 by 2000 composition. And ideally we're going to have 4 layers or 4 pre-comps because they'll need multiple colors, 4 or 5 inside of it. And it's going to be something like this. I'll just make these different colors just for quick example purposes. Now each of these colored blocks is its own layer, but this is going to be representative of each of our color schemes inside of a pre-comp. So then you can select one and reproduce them. But we need to actually make this initial setup. What is the height of these boxes? I'm not sure if you can see my screenshot, but I'm trying to take a screenshot so I can check the height of this. It looks like they're about 400 pixels high. So these will be just under 1800 pixels wide, or under 2000, let's say 1800, and 400 pixels tall for each of these layers or compositions. So let's create our initial Genesis comp. We'll say var Genesis comp is equal to app.project.items. We're going to add a comp. The first argument is the name. We'll say Genesis comp. And I actually want to add a random number. So let's create a variable called random number and set this equal to a function called generate random number. And we're going to give it 4 digits. We want 4 digits in our random number. Let's go ahead and define this function, generate random number. And this is just so that we can have variations. We're not going to have 1,000 compositions called Genesis comp. We'll have Genesis comp underscore something, so we can differentiate between them. I'm going to use num as the argument. That's the number of digits we want in our random number. And we'll create a string called randString, make it empty. Now we will loop through our num. I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to our num, I plus plus. Each time through, we're going to take our rand string and add something to it. What we're going to add to it is math.floor. We're going to round down the result of math.random times 10. And math.random will give you a random number between 0.0 and 1.0. So we're going to take that and multiply it by 10, essentially giving us a number between like 0 and 10. I can also test this out by opening a new JS file and just seeing the results, just to make sure it's giving us 0 to 10 or 0 to 9. I don't want 10 to be a result. That should be good. So we get 0 through 9 instead of 1 through 10 or something like that. Perfect. And then we'll return rand string, which we then have stored as random number, which we can add to our Genesis comp name. We're also going to add this to our color scheme pre-comps, so that's important to have as well. The next argument is the width, 2000, height, 2000, pixel aspect ratio 1. What's next? There's duration, we'll say 10 seconds, and frame rate 30. Now next up we need these pre-comps that are going to contain each of our color schemes. So let's say scheme 1 comp is equal to, we'll just copy this, is equal to app.project.addComp. We're going to call this scheme comp underscore 1. or we could even do 1 underscore random number. The width is going to be a little bit less, so it fits within the bounds of some spacing, and the height we figured was about 400. So that's good. We'll make 4 of these. Change the name to shemcomp2. Change this to 2, 3, and 4. 3, and 4. Now, we've created all these compositions. None of them have been opened up or anything yet. We're still just kind of working with them. Now, let's assume we have this shemcomp created that's 1800 by 400. What's the process we need to do to fill this in with color? I think the easiest way to do it would be to create a solid with the width divided by 5. So if I pull up a calculator, the width is 1800 divided by 5. So each of these needs to be 360 wide. I don't think the height really matters, but if I make this 360, then we'll be able to line up multiple random colored solids, like so. So that's what we need to do. We could even, to make this more customizable, let's say, for now, let's just have arbitrary sizes, but we'll make sure the function that generates these color blocks will accommodate for whatever. So let's create a function called generate random sheme with a composition. Then we're going to say solid layer width, and again that's going to be our comp.width divided by 5. And just to be safe, I'm going to floor that, because if they have a different composition width, that would produce a decimal result. I want to make sure that's rounded off. So then what we can do is say like generate random sheme, shemcomp1 or shem1 comp, and then I'll do the same for 2, 3, and 4. As you can see, this keeps the code pretty organized. So now we are generating our solid width. Let me make sure my screen recording is not in the way of the code here. Perfect. We have our solid layer width. Now we need to create 5 random solids for each of these comps. So we'll say var solid layer, and we'll say for var I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to 5, I plus plus. Now, each time we need to create a new solid layer. So solid layer is equal to our comp.layers.addSolid. And I'm definitely going to need to reference the scripting guide for this. Say add solid. So the first argument is RGB. I already know that I'm going to want my random RGB. I know I've got one. I'm pretty sure I have a... I should have an RGB thing. Generate random RGB function. Now, this will generate a random RGB. And we want to pass false as the argument, so we get a number between 0 and 1 instead of 0 and 255. So we'll say, why is this actually not recognizing the function keyword? That's interesting. So inside of the first argument of our add solid, we'll say generate random RGB false. Then the rest of the arguments, the name, say color, plus I. And then the width, which we decided is our solid layer width. The height, which is going to be our comp.height. And then I think that's pixel aspect ratio. We'll just set to 1. So now, when we run this, let's go ahead and say comp.open in viewer. And let's run this. Why did that? Oh, it alerted the RGB. Let's make sure here. We'll create a Genesis, and it's already not working. Why are we already having issues with it working? Sitting Genesis, nothing's happening. Am I getting inside of my random number function? I'm not. So let's see why we're not generating a random number. Is this messed up? No, that's good. The name is proper. Genesis button, that's spelled right. App.undo group. I really do wonder if it's this. For some reason when I pasted that, the code was not working. No, it's still not that. Is the on-click working? I'm going to go ahead and save this here. We create a new repository. We'll call this Evolutionary color scheme script. Just so I can have a place to save this. We'll call this Evolutionary color scheme. Alright. So the on-click is working. Why is generate random number not? Is this working? Okay, so it's definitely the generate random number function. It should not be giving us issues this early. Random string of our I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to num, I++. Rand string, add math.floor, math.random, it's not alerting anything when I go into that function. Let's see here. Generate random number using for. I don't understand. I don't think it's affected by anything else. Say alert A, alert num. We're not getting anything. What is going on? You know, I did wake up recently, but I don't know why this is causing such an issue. So for now, I'm just going to ignore random number, and we're going to give it just Genesis comp. We can always come back to that later. I don't know why that's causing such an issue. If you notice, let me know why. Alright, let's try this now. If we run it now, we get all of our comps with random colors. Perfect. Now we need to move them in the right positions. So let's go ahead and just work out what they need to be moved to. First, we'll move this one over to where it belongs, and I think we'll just do it as a percentage of the overall comp width. So I'll say 182. Let's see here. Oh, I deleted the wrong function too, didn't I? Sometimes you have these days coding where you just can't get stuff right. Alright, so we're going to create a switch statement inside of our for loop here where we add all of our layers. We're going to do a switch for I. In the case that I is 1, in the case that I is 2, in the case that I is 3, in the case that I is 4. Honestly, what's 182 times 2? 364. 182 plus 364 is 546, which is approximately the right position. Alright, we'll just do it by hand. And then we need case 5. I was just seeing if we could do it more incrementally and mathematically. So the first one, 182 divided by, what is it? 1800 is our total width. We're gonna set the position equal to, so I'll say solid layer dot property Adobe transform group dot property Adobe position dot set value, and let's actually create a variable called OG position. We're going to store the original position. We'll set that equal to solid layer dot property dot transform dot position dot value. Then we'll set the position to be comp.width times 0.1011 and the height to OG position 1, which is the Y position it originally had. And then we'll just paste this for each of these, and then 542 divided by our width is 0.3011. And then I think we can just increment this up like so. Let's try this. Delete all of these, and we'll run our Genesis. And now once again, it's not working. So why is this not working? Once again, for some reason, our random number is not working. So I forgot I have to remove all of this. And now let's generate. Hello. Looks like we're only getting one color generated here. So I is starting at 1, which is good. Then we should be saying Set the value to comp.width times that, and OG position 1. Should be no problem with that. Let's say I is equal to I. See what I is. And I want to see what our OG position value 1 is. Remove all this, start over. I is equal to 1. And the Y is 200. This should be working as well. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Okay. We gotta floor it. It's giving us a decimal. I don't think it wants a decimal as the comp width. That's probably not something it does. And that makes me wonder, is that what was wrong with our random number generator or something? But it's not quite the same problem, I don't think. So, delete this, run it again. And now we're still having an issue. Let's go ahead and just alert this value as we're inside of the case. Run it. We get, we need to put this in brackets. 181, 200. That should be the position it applies. But again, it's not. Solid layer.property, Adobe transform group.property, Adobe position. We're going to set the value to that. There should be no problem here. Is it getting past this? No. Let's put in a manual value, 200 say. Still not working. Is it OG position? I'm trying to figure out why it's not working. You know what it is? It's one of those mornings. Let's put this in brackets. Try it again. Yeah, it's definitely one of those mornings. So you can't just give two arguments to a set position. They need to be within brackets because you have an X and a Y. Otherwise, it takes it in as two different arguments instead of one position value. So now if I go ahead and run this, you can see we're going to get our 4 random schemes generated. Very random and different, which is perfect. I don't even think I want to have like a lows, mids, and highs. This should be good. Now we want to basically add these into here, stack them up on top of each other, and then we can start with the reproduction. I also want to take another look at this, if maybe we can fix this somehow. Why we couldn't generate random numbers beats me. I think it's fine for now. Having a random number tacked on might cause some weird results. So now we've generated these 4 schemes. We need to add them to our Genesis comp. So we're also going to be using like this position as a reference. It's actually like perfect already. So 280. Can align this to the center. 1000. 285. Something like that. And now after we generate these schemes, let's add them. So we will say we're going to need a variable for each of the layers. So var shim1 layer is equal to our genesis comp dot layers, and we're going to add our shim1 comp. Then we'll take our shim1 layer, and we're going to set the value of our position, and that value is going to be, let's just hard code it, 1000 by 285. Then we'll do the same thing for the others. Shim2 layer. Make it something even, 745. Even more spacing, 825. Do it for the third one. These aren't going to be spaced perfectly, but good enough for me. 1385, maybe 1350, 1360. And for the last one, this is going to be for layer 4. And that one will be, ooh, that's cutting it close. We'll change this to 1300. I'm going to have to change all these. I'm not the best aligner, so I'm just going to do it by eye, and we'll call that good. So it needs to be 285, 777, 1265, and 1750. Now we should be good to generate this. We're not going to open all these in the viewer. We're going to open our genesis comp in the viewer. So genesis comp to open in viewer. Generate. Now we're only adding shim comp 1. You can see we can undo in one click as well now. We need to add shim comp 2, shim comp 3, shim comp 4. That way, when we hit Genesis, you can see we're going to get our random shims. And if you wanted to, you could literally just run this and only generate Genesis shims and generate all these random color shims and colors. But the goal is to be able to create subsequent ones based on whichever one we select. So what we're now going to do is set up, well, actually what we also need to do is whenever we create a genesis comp, after that, even if we generate a brand new one, we need to tell the user it's generation 1. So I'll say display text dot text is equal to generations 1. Just a minor thing, but if you're going to continue reproducing just based off this, then it will start to iterate based on that. So now we want them to only select one of these pre-comps, and based on that, we're going to create more shims based on these colors. I think we're just going to use some randomization to push the RGB values up or down. So say function, no, we need to say reproduce button dot on click is equal to a function. We first need to check if we have a genesis comp open. So we'll say if app.project.activeItem.name. Actually, we just need to first check instance of. Okay, so we'll say if it's not null, and if app.or if app.project.activeItem is not an instance of comp item, we'll say please select a genesis, or please select a comp. we don't have to assume there's a genesis comp, I guess. We'll just create a subsequent composition. Then we'll say if app.project.activeItem.selectedLayers.length is not 1, if they have less than or more than one layer selected, we want them to select only one layer. So please select only one layer. Return false. If we get through all those checks, that means we're ready to reproduce. We're going to say reproduce sheme based on our app.project.activeItem.selectedLayers 0. I'll create a function called reproduce sheme with our layer. The composition we can grab from the layer by saying layer.containingComp. Now we're going to generate another genesis comp with one of our layers. The same sort of setup where we have 4 of these. So say we select this one, I only want to generate 4 that are similar to that. So after we hit reproduce sheme as well, I want to do one other thing. Oh, actually we need the begin undo group as well. So I'll copy this code, app.begin undo group, reproduce, and also our app.end undo group. And then after that, we're going to take display text and set it to something. We're going to grab the integer that's after generations by saying var int or var num is equal to display text.text dot slice between our display text.text dot index of colon all the way to the end, which is the display text.text dot length, and then we're going to parse into that. That way, every time we increment our reproduction, it's going to also add to that. So I think we can actually view this. Select a comp and a layer. Have a comp selected, sir. Oh, my bad. Is not equal to null is wrong. That's to say that, yeah. So that's not quite working. Let's see here. What's our num? If we've gotten it properly or not. None. Not a number. Let's say +1. Okay, cool. And we're going to add 1 to that as well. So now you can see we're getting that increment based on the previous number displayed there. You should probably also give the display text a little bit more room so it can display a little bit more than previous. Just say 220 by 25. A little too big. Say 180. I don't like how it's left. Window.align children equals center. No. Alignment. For now, that's fine. Maybe we'll just deal with that. I don't know. That's kind of annoying. That's on the left side. We'll leave it for now. My concern is that if we reproduce up to 10, it's not going to display that. Let me see if that's an actual issue. My computer's actually lagging out a bit. Nothing's taking up everything, so that's weird. I think it needs a restart thanks to Windows 10 updates. Alright, so we got our generations, and they're reproducing nicely. probably cheated and do this. Or even this. So Genesis, now you can reproduce all these. It's not going to show, I guess. That's very annoying. We need to get this alignment. Let me look at the object model viewer, script UI, window, align children, I believe. Alignment. Actually, it might be justify. Let's say bring back our display text.size is equal to 180 by 25, and our window dot justify. Let's try center. If we justify the display text. No. Alright, we're going to leave it like that for now because now we will be able to view all these generations. And I'm going to remove this extra spacing that I kind of hacked in. So that way it's a little bit nicer looking. So now we need to reproduce. We have our comp set up in our reproduce scheme composition. Now we need to grab our selected layer, which we have here, and we're going to generate a new comp based on those colors. So this is going to create a lot of compositions. So let's copy and paste our generate Genesis comp, and we're going to generate our offspring comp instead. I'm going to change the name of this to offspring comp, and we'll call this offspring comp. We're actually going to need a number. This is going to be the number, the generation number. Offspring comp plus num. And we're going to generate our offspring comp with our comp layer and a num. Num is going to come into the reproduce scheme. Probably do this before then. This. And now we're going to get that number down here in so we can name our composition whatever the generation it is. So we have our offspring comp, which is going to be the same size as our Genesis comp. We also need to bring in, we have comp layer. So we have our new offspring comp. Item 1 is always now going to be the other pre-comp. So scheme comp 1 is going to be equal to offspring comp dot layers, and we're going to add layer dot source, because the layer itself refers to the pre-composition layer, and the source is the pre-comp item, which we can then drop in and add to there. So that's going to replace that instead of generating a fresh one. Sorry. Scheme comp is going to be that. Is layer source. And then we can add it to our offspring comp. Then we'll set the position. Now for the other two, we're going to generate a scheme comp, correct? But instead of generating a random scheme, we're going to generate an offspring scheme. Offspring scheme based on scheme 1 comp. Or sorry, yeah, based on scheme 1 comp. And that's going to just change the colors. Instead of randomizing all the colors, it's going to change them based on our parent. There's a lot of ums and thinking in this, but that's all right. We're going to replace all these genesis comps to offspring comp because we want to add those to that. Instead, we're going to generate offspring comp for each of these. We're also going to need the second argument of the shim to itself as reference. Shim3 comp. Hopefully this will make sense in just a moment. And then this will be 4. Now we're going to define generate offspring shim. We're going to have our, we could even call this our baby comp and our parent comp, just so it makes a little more sense. Baby, we can change to offspring. And now what we're going to do is look at our generate random shim. Instead of random colors, we're still going to randomize. Let's just copy and paste the code from our generate random shim and change it so it fits how we want it to work. So we still have our solid layer width, which is good. Our solid layer, which is going to be each of our colors, good. OG position, also good for the positioning. Instead of generate random RGB, we're going to generate offspring colors based on our parent comp. I guess the rest is really just the same as the others. I wonder if we could integrate this. Let's keep it separate for now for organization. We'll say function generate offspring color based on a comp. And again, this is going to be the comp that it looks at, for example. And we want to look at each of these 5 colors and randomize them. So we'll take a look at the first color. We'll randomize the RGB up or down randomly. Second color, up or down randomly. And we need to return a new RGB value. So we're not just going to need, we're going to need I as well, which is our color int. We're taking in, for each solid, we're taking in the composition, the parent composition, and the index. So we have color 1, randomize, color 2, randomize, color 3, randomize. So the color int is just going to tell us which layer we need to get. So let's go ahead and loop through. I actually don't remember. How do we get a solid color? Dot color. Mask group, solid source. How do we get solid source? Without main source. So I'm going to loop through my comp layers. Var L is equal to 1, L is less than or equal to our comp.num layers. Increment L by 1. If our comp.layer L.name, and we're going to split using the underscore. We're going to get the second half because the way we named our layers here is we have the color underscore number. We want that number. So we're going to split it by the underscore, grab the number, parse it as an integer. We're going to say if that is equal to our color int, then that's our color layer. Let's go ahead and see here what the color value returns us with. An array, perfect. So we'll just say var this color array. We can even say input color array. We're going to say input color array is equal to comp.layer L dot, to get the solid source, I think we say main source dot color. Now we need to then randomize these values. So we're going to say var r is equal to input color array 0. And then we have G and B, which are the first and second indices respectively. We now need to randomize these guys. Now, whether we randomize them up or down is really up to us. Let's create a couple more variables called output R, output G, output B. And in the end of this function, these are going to be what we actually return in order to apply to our new solids that we're creating. So we get that. Now between each of these, we're going to randomize. Now we need to randomize between, we want 0 or 1. So I think we can just say 2 on this instead and get only 0 or 1. We're going to evaluate this. We're going to say if that is equal to 0, else. So if it's equal to 0 in our randomization, 50-50 chance, we're going to randomize up. Otherwise, we're going to randomize down, which means we're going to increase or decrease the color channel value. So randomize up, randomize down. We're going to take R, and let's see, these values are going to be coming in decimals. So how much do we want to randomize it? Maybe 10-20%, between 10 and 20%. So what we can further do is say R plus equals math.floor. There's a lot of randomization going on here, but math.random times 20 divided by 100. So if I just go ahead and run this in over here, you can see that's going to give us values between 0.00 and 0.19, I believe, which is a good amount to add or subtract. So let's just now paste that, or minus that, and then we'll do the same here for, I guess we don't need to have those output variables. We're going to say G and B. And instead of having these outputs, we can just use our original RGB. All right, I think we're ready to try this out. Let's remove all these comps that we used for testing. Run this, create our genesis. Now, if I deselect everything, hit reproduce, it says please select only one layer. So I'll select layer 1 here, reproduce. So I see one offspring comp. We have our original layer set up, but that's it. Let's see how far we're getting. There's shim 1. We added that successfully. We moved the position successfully. Shim comp 2. We have here, but it's empty. So our generate offspring shim, I think, is what's wrong here. Shim 2 comp, shim 1 comp. So let's see where this goes wrong. I think it just gets stuck here when we generate our solid layer, which might mean it's our generate colors. Let's go ahead and try and create a genesis, reproduce, no alerts. Oh, we're using comp.width here. This should be based on our offspring comp.width, I believe. Genesis, reproduce. Okay. We're not getting any further here. Let's just see. Alerts are your friend to figure out how far you're getting in the code. I imagine we're stopping about here. Genesis, reproduce, A. And then our solid layer is not being created. I'm guessing our generate offspring color is messing up. The parent comp and I that we're taking in here. Now we'll see how far into this we're getting. I imagine it could be the integer we're trying to get. Let's alert our color int. Alert parse int of this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Run that. Now the debugging is going a little bit faster, which is good. No alerts. So generate offspring color is not being received. Once again, we don't have a comp. Let me comment these out. Comp is not referenced here. We're adding this to our offspring comp. And there's also multiple things in here that need to be changed. So comp.width, comp.width. Now, let's try it again. Hoping for a good success here. Genesis, reproduce. Still not making our solid layer. So I'll uncomment this stuff, see if we're getting into the function now. Genesis, reproduce. A, color int is 1, and we're trying to get a value which does not exist yet. It's probably stopping it completely. Genesis, reproduce. So you can see it's getting the integers now from the layers, perfect. But let's see here. Alert found color match. See if we can get to that. Found color match. But it doesn't get past that. So there's something wrong with comp.layerl.mainSource. Let's go ahead and say right line app.project.activeItem.layer1.mainSource. That gives us undefined. What if we just get source? Source gives us a footage item. .mainSource. Yeah, so it's source.mainSource. I think I'm confident enough to comment these out. So this needs to be .source.mainSource, which is a little bit annoying. Relaunch, Genesis, reproduce. I'm gonna have to click through a couple times here as it's going through here, but it looks like it's making it past all of our checks. So there's new solids created. This feels like it's looping too much. But actually, it's not. Okay, I think we're about done. I'm going to remove all these alerts so we can go through much faster. And I don't think the increment we chose was enough, or the level of change. I'm going to go with 40. Okay, now if we run this, we're going to create our Genesis. Now, what's the color one we want to reproduce? I like this top one. Let's reproduce it. Now, these are its offspring. Which one do I like most? Let's say the bottom one. Reproduce. And then we can just continue going on and creating colors that are quite a bit similar. Let's reduce it just slightly. I think 30 is a good middle ground. 20 wasn't quite enough change. Maybe if we generated a lot more, 30 should be good. Genesis, like this one, and really you could just keep going and going and going, and you'll keep recreating more and more children. You can see I just clicked it a bunch of times and it has to catch up and load. At a certain point, some colors might max out their RGB values, but for the most part, you can see after 24 generations, like it works pretty well. If you wanted to take this and expand it yourself to make it more improved and things, you could make it automatically generate maybe a certain number of generations or something. But I think that is going to do it. Let me go ahead and push this to the GitHub so you guys can see it yourself. Generate color schemes and children similar to it. Sweet. So I believe that is functioning totally the way I wanted it to. And if you want, you could always just start over with a new Genesis. And hey, I like that color. Let's create some more like that. You can kind of just go off and generate more and more things, adjust the randomization, and a whole bunch of other features. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit the thumbs up button. Down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly on the channel. And down in the description, you can check out the code for this in the GitHub link as I just posted it. Make sure you follow us there for coding updates. And of course, you can follow us in the description on Instagram for other live updates. If you're not a member of the Discord server, you can come and join and get help with scripting, extensions, plugins, expressions, submit tutorial ideas, and much more. And if you'd like to help support the YouTube channel, you can become a member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP. Get lots of cool perks, member status on Discord, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Link for that is in the description down below. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys next time.